This video is going to walk you through putting together multiplicity pictures using floating objects. So you can see in this photo here you have the books that are floating in the picture. In this one you have the rocks that were thrown into this circular pattern, so maybe you could think about the placement of everything. And then another one here where books were held, and then the person holding the books was cut out of the image, and same thing with the paper in the background. And then if you look over onto the right here, you can kind of see how to go about taking the pictures for these images. So you have that baby that's floating, and then the person holding the baby that was eventually masked out of the image. So when taking these photos, make sure that your tripod is facing your background and take a background picture. So an image with nothing in it. Hold the object away from your body in different spots that you want it to be cloned. So try to get as little of your hand as possible in the pictures. So try to just hold the object out to the front of the image. And then you could also, if you have objects such as rocks or something that can be thrown when you take the pictures, you can do that as well in front of the camera, and that will save you some time editing. But it might be difficult to get a clear picture of those objects to make them look like they're frozen if they are thrown. The first step in Photoshop for these images is to go to File, Scripts, and then Load Files into Stack. And then I'm going to hit Browse and find where my pictures are at. And now that I know where my pictures are at, I'm going to highlight them, hit Open, and then remember to check off that first box that says Attempt to automatically align source images. That way everything will line up for you in Photoshop. But give it a minute, be patient. Sometimes it takes a little bit to load these in order in your layers panel. Are all loaded. I'm going to start with adding a mask to my first layer. I'm going to grab my paintbrush, make sure the color is set to black, the mode is normal, opacity at 100%. I'm just going to zoom in and I'm going to mask out of the image everything that I want to stay in my composition. I'm just painting right over where this book is, and I know in some of the pictures that you'll work with, the background color might change a little bit or look a little darker like it does right here. But I would not worry about that for now. We can touch that up when you come back and start putting things together. But I'm going to zoom in here. I brought back a little bit too much of the picture underneath, so I'm just going to switch my color to white and get rid of those shoes. Switch back to black here and then just adjust that edge of the book. I'm going to make my brush really small to really get that corner of the book along the edge there, and then just making sure that I have a good outline of that page as well. When you're finished, you're going to hit Command I, and then that's going to bring your page back, and now you can go back in and touch up the outside as well. So I'm going to make my brush a little bit bigger. I'm going to change my brush to a feathered brush. That way it's going to blend out a little bit better. And then lower that opacity to around 30%. And I'm just going to paint lightly around the outside here to try to blend those edges so it's not as obvious that that background is a different value. You might have to go over a few areas a few times. You can maybe turn up the opacity if it's taken too long for some areas of your image. But that again just helps to touch up that outside value so it's a more smooth transition with the colors there. Now I'm going to zoom in on my next layer. I'm going to click on it, add a mask, readjust my opacity, bring back my hard edge brush there so that I can have a good outline as I'm erasing. And then I'm going to make that brush a lot smaller as I get closer to the details, so I don't want to go over any of that hand because I want the hand out of the composition. I'm just painting around here, trying to again be really careful when I get to those details. Alright, so then when I'm finished, I'm going to zoom out, hit Command I, and that will bring the book back. And I can go back and touch up some of those areas later since this arm isn't going to be in the picture. But that brings the next layer out. So I'm going to do the same thing, click on it, add a mask, zoom in, and then just mask out the book. So go ahead and continue this for all of your layers. Remember, as you're going around these areas to just be careful not to mask out the hand. So leave that hand visible as you're working. Otherwise, it will become part of your composition, which you don't want. However, if you do by accident get a little bit of the hand in there, you can always go back and touch that up once you have everything inverted and brought back. Now that I have all of these layers brought back, this is where I can just kind of click through them and touch up anything. So on this one, I want to touch up that little bit of an edge around the outside since the value changes. So again, I'm going to choose a feathered brush, lower my opacity to around 33%, make that brush a little bit bigger, make sure I have that correct mask selected on the layer that's being affected, and then I'm just going to paint around the outside there, trying to fade that value in so it's not such a harsh edge. And then there's certain areas on some of these books that I might want to go back and touch up too. So I'm just going to click through, hide the layers, select the image that I need to touch up, make that brush a little bit smaller, and for this one I'm going to bring the opacity up since I want to kind of smooth out some of those edges a lot more. But take your time with it, zoom in on all of these. This one here could use touched up. I'm kind of missing a few spots that I will go back and paint into the composition. So I'm switching my colors between black and white to try to see which direction I need to adjust and which one is going to work for each layer. But when you're finished, make sure that you crop the image, adjust your levels and curves, and then save as a JPEG to submit.